Welcome to Front Row Geeks.
The voices are being digitized and put into a computer where things will happen to it in the future. It's really weird. Tell your kids. But yeah, Front Row Geeks. Welcome back to another week of talking about what's going on and what we've been doing in all things geekdom. I'm Eddie Espinoza, Baron 5X, joined by David Asher and our favorite X, the MPX. How y'all doing?
Sounds like you've had a week, Eddie.
I'm a little tired. I was very irresponsible yesterday and played Fallout 76 and Borderlands until about 3 in the morning yesterday. Most because
3 years into the morning?
3 years into the morning.
Yes, 3 years in the morning. You know, that makes sense. So that happened, and that's Andy's fault because he was streaming Fallout 76, and I joined him, and we did a lot of questing, and, you know, one thing led to another, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and then I started house hunting kind of suddenly. It kind of just happened. So that's been part of my day today too. So yeah, I'm tired, but that's okay. Once we start playing Ghost of Tsushima, my slow, very purposeful steps will make for great stealth combat. So I tell myself. So how are you all doing?
Doing okay.
Does everybody have their next gen system ready to go? We've been playing it all week.
No.
We've been enjoying it.
No, we didn't even bother trying to get one because it's like, no. I saw the tech specs and I saw some early reports, and some of those early reports are actually coming true.
Now, let's go ahead and get into it, because it's basically going to be the bulk of today's episode. It's talking about the arrival of the next gen. We're here. We're finally here.
Next
PS5.
gen has become current gen already.
Yep.
That's been a weird common line that I've been seeing actually brought up.
What, that
it's no longer next gen even when it's finally here.
Yeah, it's an odd transition, right? Like now it is current gen now. Like PS4
but the
is
problem
no
is, like, we don't have anything that can show off the true technical specifications for it in
you don't
full.
think Valhalla is up there with that? I mean, Ubisoft, they're a big company. That's a big game.
I've heard some people say that, like, it's like every other Assassin's Creed where there's still a lot of glitches. And some people are outright saying that, yeah, there's, like, things look impressive, but they look like, high tier impressive, but it's nothing so far that we've seen that we haven't seen before on other systems or PC.
Now,
it's probably not like the... Well, sorry.
Well, I guess just to trail into your question, is this game multi-gen? Like, is it available on PS4?
As far as I know, Valhalla is PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and I think it's only available through the Ubisoft store currently.
Okay.
Wait, seriously?
Let me go check Steam real quick, because I didn't see it on there. And
now, I don't know if this is to your point, but I guess kind of tangent from what David is saying, it maybe is because this game is meant to be cross-generational, that maybe it's not taking full advantage of what the powerhouses have in their guts?
I think this would still be a bit of a difference. I mean, let's face it, the old systems would still be using old HD drives, old hard disks. So they're not going to be loading as fast as the SSDs that are guaranteed in all the next generation consoles.
Yeah.
That's the fact that I've heard some criticism between the Xbox Series S versus the X in terms of its performance. And like the S is more like if you ended up just getting the improved version of the Xbox One, but it's in a tinier form factor in a sense.
Yeah, and I guess that depends on. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't have one, so maybe I can't say truly for it. But like for me, the intent of the Series S was always about, this will be able to play next gen games, but it's not going to play them at the same resolution, at the same graphics intensity as an X. But it'll still be
Yeah.
next gen by definition.
Well, I've
Yeah.
heard one of the major things people have been criticizing it has been, instead of being a system that can run next gen games but not at 4K, it's like can't even run them necessarily at even 60 frames per second. They're sort of also
Yeah.
still, a lot of them are frame locked back down to 30. So
Yeah,
a lot of people are going, is it really next gen then?
yeah. That you. I mean, just bringing back Valhalla as far as maybe our best focus for this. Yeah, that one's at 30 FPS. That one plays at
Yeah.
30 FPS.
And as for the SSD things, I mean, I understand that like most console players are not going to go digging into their guts, but some of them are hardcore gamers have swapped out for SSDs, and they say that the SSD stuff is just on par with last gen. It's still nice to have it, but it's if you've actually swapped out a hard drive on your console with an SSD, there's little to no difference that they've seen so far.
I mean, I can
So,
tell you, ever since I put in the SSD on the PS4, I mean, the
mhm.
loading screens on Ghost of Tsushima has been so super good, like barely there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like it's one of those situations like we're mostly kind of repeating secondhand information because sad to say none of us have access to either an Xbox Series X or a PS5. Not that there isn't like good stuff coming out of it, because like I've been hearing good stuff about the Sixth Sense controller
Hmm.
being super like the whole haptic feedback is actually I've been hearing good stuff about the actual haptic feedback,
Yeah, a lot of
and these are
potential
from
there.
people. Yeah, and these are from people that actually state that they absolutely hate rumble features, but the haptic feedback feels a lot more natural.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
as far as our team goes, yeah, it's gonna be like at the earliest, it might be next holiday season when I get one of these consoles. But even then, I'm not because personally, I'm looking forward to a Switch Pro. Like that's the next upgrade that I want on a console, and I'm hoping they release one next year. Hoping they. I mean, there's rumors, but we'll see.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then I want a VR system, which is gonna take a bunch of money. So, like
Well,
that's the price of
yes.
a console right there.
and room,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So no, there's likely not going to be a next gen console in my future unless it's a Switch Pro.
mhm.
Well, there's also the entire criticism of the availability of the consoles currently and the nonsense that has been going around, which strangely all I've seen is with the PS5, not so
Yeah,
much the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I, my first question with that is this any different from any other generational release? Shortages, things kind of being everywhere. I mean, I don't. The pandemic isn't helping, but I think all that really does is keeps people from lining up at stores. But the result would be the same. Hey, everybody, we're out. Go home.
Yeah, but I feel like beforehand, uh, scalping was a bit harder to do because so much of the consoles were reserved for in-store purchase and pickup, and they can probably far better monitor people from saying, "Hey, you can only purchase one," versus most of these online resellers who probably understand how
Yeah,
to game the system and are able to access 10 or 20 consoles with little effort.
Which, man, I have to imagine how that's done, because how can someone with one single account for themselves not get a PS5 pre-order, but who's gaming the system where they got 3 of them?
Bots,
Well,
literally.
it's bots, probably separate accounts, so they can,
I've even seen 1 or 2 reports about people actually jumping time zones to gain access to it.
God, why don't we all use bots to get ourselves next gen consoles?
Because we're sensible people?
Yeah,
because did you think you need to do that today to just simply reserve a console?
No, I mean, like we've already talked about, I don't think any of us are really interested in diving into the next gen yet, so there was no innovation for someone like us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the fact that people are actually willing to pay, twice the price to purchase one of these systems is rather ridiculous. But it's not completely unbelievable when we ended up seeing similar purchasing habits done with, say, the limited edition of the NES Mini, the SNES Mini, other minis, and other things like that.
I really wanted that NES Mini, but yeah, it was just, didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. And that's why I got a pirate console. So,
Yep.
whatever.
Well, the NES Mini really wasn't all that great of a deal, I think, for anybody which has been playing with ROMs over the years.
Yeah, but it would have been nice to be able to pull that out and like get my nephew over and let's play some old school games. Like, no fuss.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And just the joy of having a mini NES.
Well, it's something nice to have essentially as a one and forget it. Never have to worry about, sites going down, whether versions between software, software compatibility, whether certain things are just being displayed correctly in the emulator anyway because of the hardware changes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, there's also a lot of third-party options on that as well.
And then there's the opposite side, which we could slowly meander our way into, which is the whole, if you don't want to deal with emulation, why don't we just remake or remaster games? And one of the games on PS5 is one of those.
Ooh, Demon Souls? Is this Demon Souls?
It's Demon Souls.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that specifically.
So
we can come back to some hardware questions, but I want to hear about this.
So, I've watched somebody who's known for playing like Dark Souls and Dark Souls likes. I watched his
made
video.
his YouTube career off of Souls stuff.
Yes. The YouTuber I'm actually speaking about is Iron Pineapple. I'm betting everybody was waiting for me to mention VatiVidya, which I don't think he actually. I think he stated that he was actually holding off on getting it.
I saw him upload a video about him playing through it or something like that, but I don't know.
Like when I heard about it, it was like last year, so it's like, you could probably change his mind. But so like I watched his opinion on it, and he broke it down into the factor that there's a little bit of controversy in the Souls community about it. And here's the weird part is the factor that what people are kind of broken up about it is the graphics. Because yes, the PS3 is the pinnacle of graphics. And they basically made everything really nice looking. But here
from the
was
previews, it looks like a pretty nice looking game.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that a bunch of diehard Demon Souls fans are like, oh god, it's no longer muddy or smudgy or brown.
Well, there is some consideration into some of the talking points, such as changing character design and art direction on some things, such as as his example was the fat. I'm trying to remember the exact name. The fat guy.
Yeah, I know the I think Fat. I'm coming up with the name Jester, but I know it's not that.
Hmm.
Joker, clown.
Jailer.
Jailer.
The fat jailer. That's what. And yeah, I do kind of agree with him on that one because, like, in his video, he shows what the old one looks like, which literally looks a little bit demonic and just freaky all around. But then, like, he showed the picture of what they do look like in the PS5 remaster, and they look basically like a fat guy who's got the bubonic plague. So he's got
Which-
boils, but it's just kind of no longer imposing, really. Just ew.
I mean, that still sounds
But
kind of like gnarly. That description.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it,
but
it's
when you
like
take a look at it, it doesn't look nearly as interesting as the original concept, in my opinion.
yeah. But he did state that overall he liked the update to the graphics. It brought more depth to the world. And then his nitpick, which is actually weirdly probably the polar opposite of most of like what people are probably saying about it, is that he felt like that the actual mechanical gameplay was just lifted up from the PS3 version and then plopped straight down for the PS5 version. No changes except for just a couple, like very, very minor changes for gameplay balance.
As someone
Um,
who hasn't played Demon Souls, isn't that kind of what a Demon Souls fan would want?
well, in this case, like from my perspective, like the things he wanted was more about like clarity with the world tendency, which trust me, that's a nightmare and a half. Because if you don't know how world tendency works in Demon Souls, you can royally fuck yourself up.
Yeah, no idea what that is.
Best way is that it's a mechanic in the game that makes the game easier or harder, and it doesn't work in the way you'd expect it to.
Also, it gates off certain opportunities for weapons or quests.
Which also lead to various items / abilities as well. So, but like he basically wanted like little tiny changes or add-ons to various things that I could see somebody would liking to add, but as you pointed out, Eddie, like for people that are purists of the genre, like they can complain and argue about the graphics, but if the gameplay is still the same, they don't have to worry too much.
Which for a game like Demon Souls, I think that's what you would want. Just because I think a lot of what makes these
Mhm.
types of games so interesting is the gameplay itself. Like the lore is one thing, and I think people appreciate that, but it's
Well,
that gameplay loop that really drives people.
in this case, like it wasn't necessarily like the actual control scheme itself, but changes to certain aspects. Like he'd want a very specific boss, which is the puzzle boss of Demon Souls, to actually have a bit more intuitiveness to it, where it's not just, oh, sit, dodge, 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 sit, press button, sit, dodge.
Okay, Eddie, have you played Dark Souls?
Yep.
Have you played the Bed of Chaos fight?
I don't recall.
It's the
The big
one with
tree
the
one.
big tree
I
at
don't think
the
I have.
bottom.
I didn't get very far with Dark Souls.
Okay,
As
then.
David knows, I went far in Bloodborne. I beat Dark Souls 3. I don't even know if I even played 2, and I don't think I got very far in 1.
I thought you beat 2 with your brother, Eddie, and didn't touch 3 at all.
No, it was 3 then. It was 3 I did
Okay.
that with.
I don't think 3 has a puzzle boss. To explain, most of the games that I like, there's usually that one boss that the only way to technically defeat them is not to actually attack them directly, but to do certain actions before the fight. For the fans of the series and people that are wondering, the biggest example is Dark Souls Bed of Chaos, which is literally dodging to get to 2 points that you break, and then making one very, very, very finicky jump. And then you fight the boss, the true boss's form, and it's like a 2-hit kill. And that was actually Dark Souls' interpretation of a boss from Demon Souls. Since we're not going to do spoilers territory on it, because the game, since Demon Souls already exists, and this is just a remake, the boss in question is the Dragon Lord. Or was it the Dragon God?
I think it's the Dragon God, because that's a very impressive name for a boss you don't really fight.
Yeah, basically, the boss, the quotations boss fight is you basically harpoon him down and then you just smack his face several times. And the entire thing is you have to get to 2 giant harpoons to lock him down to smack his face. So,
and that's all preparation from the sounds of it.
it's actually most of the boss fight. Because once you lock his face, he really can't do much except breathe fire, and that one it's like, oh, I know it's coming, I'll just get out of the way.
To contrast my observations about what I'm hearing about this is that last week we talked about the Mass Effect games, right? And I think I even mentioned that I cannot go back to Mass Effect 1 because the gameplay is just, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't play that game. But then, but also the game, that kind of game was a lot about the plot and the characters and yada yada. Like that was a very important part of that game.
Mm-hmm.
If you had told me that they revamped the whole game to play more like 2 and 3, but kept the story, that would be great for me. I don't think you can do that with Demon Souls. It feels like a game where if you change the gameplay to, let's just say for the sake of argument, to be more like Dark Souls 2. Why you would do it, I don't know why, but let's say they did that. People would be up in arms. Like, no, you don't make it pretty, sure, but you don't mess with the gameplay.
Yeah. And like they did make some small changes to allow for gameplay balance, because one of the things that I've seen a lot of, and some people are actually kind of just, okay, this is kind of a nice, okay thing for balance, is that in the original game, unlike Dark Souls where you had the Estus Flask, the only heating you had healing herbs and stuff, but the one thing that Demon Souls had was a carry weight. So you actually had to be very careful about like how much you had on you and various aspects of that nature. Kind of like how so it's like items in your inventory would also affect how much you could like if you had the fast, slow, the fast, medium, or heavy roll in Dark Souls. So one thing that they did implement was that the herbs actually have weight now instead of being completely weightless. So you could have 99 full heal herbs in your inventory if you happen to grind that amount. And yeah, a lot of people got royally pissed off at some of the invaders because they either the person that they invaded had 99 full heal herbs, or the person invading had 99 full heal herbs, and it just became, fuck you, I'm just going to walk off the cliff. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of killing me.
That was definitely probably a change for the better.
That was a change for gameplay balance reasons, which a lot of players so far have said it's a concession that they're okay to make, because it's something that allows people to not have to worry about people just having like the max amount of healing items in their inventory. But at the same time, I've heard some people just out and out state that like they do not like anything about the graphics, including the facial animations, which
Is new to the series.
is new to the series entirely and really just like, yeah, it's a little creepy, but at the same time, I'm sitting there going like, yeah, I'd be okay with it.
So,
'Cause
is
it's
there a
supposed,
verdict? Is there a verdict about whether this is a worthwhile remake,
um,
or is it too early to
the
tell?
in this case, a lot of people are kind of straddling the line. Iron Pineapple, and I kind of agree with him on this point, is that if you are new to the series, like if you are kind of a fan of the series, but you're also going to be using the PS5 for other things, and you never got into, you never got to play the PS3 version, or you don't want to do other methods to play it, it'd probably be okay to grab it. But if you're only getting a PS5 to play Demon Souls, or you are willing to go through other methods like emulation, or you already own a copy, you don't necessarily need to get a version of this game. So overall, a lot of people are saying like it'd be like if you got started with Dark Souls but never got to play Demon Souls, it would be okay to buy it. But you kind of, it's like it's not worth the cost of getting an entirely new console for it yet. So
Huh. So, Demon Souls maybe not a system seller, but that's, well, is that okay? Do we? Well, I say that, but I feel like Bloodborne had a lot of people that I think that game drew a lot of people to the PlayStation 4.
in this case, I'm going to put it as that since Bloodborne was its own individual IP, it was, I'd say Bloodborne was
Easier to get into, for one.
yeah. Second thing of all is that it was kind of like, I did see a lot of people who literally just got a PS4 just to play Bloodborne, and they said that yeah, it was worth the cost of getting a PS4 for it.
I mean, that's where I cut my teeth with Souls games.
Yeah. But like most of the majority are saying that right now, since this is a remake of an older game, if you're getting the PS5 for just this game, they really hope that you are a huge dedicated fan. But like if you're a casual person and you're just getting this game to play it and you've never played any other Souls game, this may turn into a heavy investment that you may start thinking that this was not worth the price.
There might be some buyer's remorse.
Yes. So my thoughts on it are like, if it's a remake / remaster, because as of right now, those terms are now being interchangeable, which is stupid.
Well, it's a remaster, right? You wouldn't call this a remake, would you?
People have been calling it a remake. It's technically a remaster, is what it is.
Okay.
It's a really good remaster. Don't get me wrong.
I kind of would have thought that Final Fantasy VII would have taught us the difference between remaster and remake by now.
Yeah, I've seen some people. I've heard some people say that Final Fantasy VII was a remaster. I'm like, that's not right at all. And because like the way like this is something we actually discussed on FRP, is a remake is basically taking something and building it from scratch, from the ground up. A remaster is taking the framework and then updating it to work on current generational hardware or software, depending on if it was.
For the sake of clarity, what would you call the Spyro game that came out a while ago? and or the Crash Bandicoot games that came out a while ago.
Those ones are funny because, by all technical means, they are remakes. But the reason why they're technically should be called remakes, even though they are, most people consider them remasters, is because of the factor that the original, source code for those games is lost to the ether. So they had to recreate them from scratch.
Or
Well, I
you
thought they
could
went
say
through a
remake.
similar method that they used for the Homeworld reconstruction, of where they just used the code for Homeworld 2 and essentially tried to recreate Homeworld 1 in it.
Yeah. So yeah, in this case, it's like the Crash Bandicoot one, they had to create from scratch because they lost the source code. I think when Crash was acquired by its current owner, because Crash was made by Naughty Dog, of all people.
Yeah.
But then it got sold off to Atari?
I thought it was still a
No.
Naughty Dog property.
No, it's not.
Huh.
Let's see here. Steam. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy is Activision. The developer Vicarious Visions and Iron Galaxy, but the current publisher and owner of the IP is Activision.
Interesting. I had not realized that handoff had happened.
It happened roughly around the PS2 era. Because Spyro was actually an Insomniac property,
Mm-hmm.
and Activision also acquired Spyro as well. Admittedly, I'm not sure when that happened, or the fact that Spyro was Insomniac, but it was published by Activision from the get-go. And then Insomniac probably just sold the rights of Spyro to Activision so they could move on to other things. So.
Okay. Anything else to say about Demon Souls?
I like the looks of it, I'll be honest. I am really impressed with what I've seen, even though some people are saying that YouTube compression just makes the game look horrible hot garbage. And I'm like, even at 1080p, it still looks pretty nice. So, I'll be honest, I'd like to get my hands on it, but
as we said,
yeah, I will probably wait until it's cheaper to before dropping 50, $70 on it.
Well, it's only on the PS5 though, right?
It's PS5 only, but the $70 is a deluxe edition that adds in some extra stuff.
Well, I'm just saying that the cost to get to play Demon Souls is more than the game itself.
Yeah, but
case.
problem is when I sit there and it's probably by the time I have the system, it will have most likely dropped in price. So,
before we talk about hardware stuff for the next gen consoles, I will say that having thought about it, there's really only a few things that would convince me to get the PS5 well before than my initial thinking. And it's going to be a Kingdom Hearts game, which I don't know if they're going to come out with a mainline title anytime that soon. So I think I'm safe there. I think Final Fantasy Remake 7 Part 2 will affect my decision depending on when that comes out, which again, I'm not sure if it'll be that soon. And then Tales of Arise, which I don't know how. I mean, that's probably going to be multi-plat, so I maybe shouldn't have to worry about that one. But I don't know. The last time I played a Tales game on not a PS station was Tales of Zestria, and I feel burned by that. So, and I don't think it was the PC's fault, but I feel burned by that.
Oh, the Zestiria and wait, you played Berseria on PS4?
Yeah, I bought that on PS4.
Okay.
Yeah, this year just broke my heart. I mean, it wasn't a bad game, but it just like, man. If it wasn't Berseria, I would be way more upset at the Tales series right now. But Berseria knocked that out of the park. So
Oh, considering that right now, no, it's not Christoria.
yeah,
The
Christoria.
next Tales game.
Oh,
No,
talking about
Christoria is the mobile game. The
yeah,
next mainline mothership,
it's Tales of Rise.
Tales of Arise, which I think I saw Namco basically said that it's actually delayed to 2022 right now.
If that's the case, glory to God, because that will keep me from buying a PS5 anytime soon.
Yeah, because they said like, oh, it was like they'd have some information this year. Well, we know how this year's going.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like, oh, we'll have some it's like, well, we may have some information next year, and then it's like, sorry guys, but do the whole thing. We're probably not going to be even able to release the game until at earliest 2022.
That's fair.
So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Okay,
Delays
hardware
happen.
stuff. Hardware next gen. So
Too
most
many
of what I know.
reports.
Well, okay. So a question for you, because all I've really heard has been on the Xbox side. I haven't heard much from the PS stuff, and I don't think that's because I don't have any problems, and I just haven't heard much about the PS5 side of things. As far as Xbox goes, I know they're having disk issues. There's like a clicking sound that happens with certain disk drives. I know people have had like loading disk failures, and then there is those
People
videos of
vaping
people,
through their systems.
yeah, people faking that their systems were smoking when it was just people vaping into the exhaust.
And Microsoft responding with, please don't vape through your Xbox. Bad for the hardware.
Yeah. So, have you heard anything PS5 wise?
It's actually worse PS5 wise, from what we've.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
Boot loop errors.
Ooh.
Basically disks getting stuck in their own hardware.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, and the most common one, which is actually something that somebody predicted early last year, which was overheating.
For the PS5, it's overheating?
The PS5, a lot of people are getting overheating errors.
Isn't that why they have those huge ass heat sinks?
Apparently, they're not adhered well.
Wow, that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's like
no.
It's like that's not good. I mean, like all these quotations work to get the like to solve the heating problem, and then you just don't bother investing into making sure that.
Yeah, I feel like half the physical design of the PS5 was to compensate for heat.
It was, but the problem is that apparently, due to certain manufacturing, we're not sure who or what is at fault here.
Gremlins.
A lot of people
Well,
are
it's a
blaming
question of whether it was done in the design phase or the construction phase.
Yeah, but it's coming out in the woodwork that all that work, because like the reports are ranging anywhere from like the console will shut off after playing the game for so long,
Whew.
to some people out and out saying that it's dumping so much heat into like the heat vents are actually potentially causing certain other things to happen. But the most common one is the fact that apparently the device cannot stay on for long. Which that's
not good.
that it's like I'm sitting there going like, wow, and I know that there are hardcore gamers because, sad to say, we're kind of transitioning into casuals ourselves. We're no longer hardcore, except for Eddie. Apparently, yes, last night where he spent like several hours playing one game.
Yeah.
Is that like for most gamers, they're gonna spend like 3 or 4 hours playing the game versus me, where it's like I'll sit down and play maybe 1 to 2, and then go like, okay, I'm good. I need to stretch my legs, need to go pee, need something to drink, and and I haven't seen any official response from PlayStation yet. But some people are thinking that potentially certain aspects, like the system does have a heat prevention, like a automatic shutdown feature, like most electronics nowadays, and that may be why some people's systems are shutting down. Is the fact that it's actually activating that feature right there. Is that somehow turning? It's kicking on the overheat safety shutdown to prevent damage to the console, but as of right now, it's just reports about it.
Yeah, I'd be
So,
curious to see how much of this is actually going to be substantiated, and how much of it isn't just one-offs, and how much of it is a pattern.
or
Or
how much of it is basically somebody stuffed their PS5 in this little tiny cubbyhole with barely any breathing room around it.
or is it going to be a Joy-Con issue that we talk about years later?
Joy-Con, that's still going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, hardware-wise, like I've been like Xbox, I haven't been hearing a lot. Yeah, I heard about the clicking noise, which that one was weird because like I think I read one article that says like if you lay it not like how it's mostly displayed where it's like end up, but on its side you hear it more often, which is weird. But it's one of those like it could also be that some like whatever the clicking is could be potentially something that's harmless and more of like an audio indication thing, but it doesn't appear
It's
to
not very
be.
sexy.
It's definitely not very fun when you're like putting a disc in. It's like click, 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 click.
And there's your like $500 monolith that you bought, making clicking noise.
It's like it's a time bomb now. It's no longer a monolith. It's a time bomb.
It's a metronome. It's a very expensive metronome.
Metronomes actually have the little tiny like arm thing to tell you, versus this one where it's like ominous clicking. So, but like I haven't heard a lot of hardware issues with Xbox. I've been hearing okay things from it.
A lot of what I just mentioned, the clicking, the some boot issues, but not yet widely reported. I mean, and this is only the first few days of both consoles coming out, so again, it's a matter of
Yeah.
whether these are going to be these one-offs that are just loud because it's the internet and one-offs can be loud, or is this
Yeah,
going to
or
be
it's
a
like
pattern?
one off because like it was reported like this is something that like a major streamer or a YouTuber experienced, and
Yep,
because they're a big thing, a lot of people are like, "Oh no, this one person get it, maybe other people are getting it." So it could just
mass
be,
hysteria.
yeah. So overall, it's the first few days of the release. Things are quotations the wild west of mass production, where like one-off issues could be potentially big issues, or they could just be just one-off issues.
It's
So,
a beautiful next generation, which
uh,
slight transition. Speaking of things going awry in the year 2020, I haven't heard anything substantial yet, but I'm already hearing. I've seen more than one post online talking about how Cyberpunk is due for another delay.
I think it's just simply stating the dread in everybody's hearts that
Yeah.
if it's already missed, the release date for the Christmas season by this much, what's the harm for going another 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 2 months?
I mean,
Okay.
personally speaking, and I think all of us are kind of on the same page. They can take as long as they want, as long as they come out with a good game once they come out with it. But
We've already
Yeah.
waited like over 8 years for it.
yeah,
So
but
my
there are
thoughts.
definitely people. There are definitely people who don't agree with that statement, though. That sentiment.
No delays ever. I'm like, yeah, you are the people that say no delays, and then you get something like No Man's Sky.
Well, let's be honest. If we were like still teenagers, especially under 15, we would probably be a lot more annoyed if certain games didn't come out as early as they could.
Fair, fair,
True.
no joke. And they're probably the ones who are online right now who are going to be, you know, carrying
Shouting the
torches.
loudest.
Yeah.
Yeah, some 14-year-old who makes like much more than I do in a year after a month of YouTubing is complaining about like another delay for Cyberpunk, and here I am being.
They're not using YouTube, David. They're using TikTok, remember.
I swear I thought I saw somebody saying that like a 14-year-old made like $500,000 or like $250,000 a month by doing YouTube videos.
I'm pretty sure it's
You-
possible.
Not to tangent again, especially at the wire at this point, but I recently started watching this YouTube channel of this guy from Mexico, and part of it is just that I don't get enough Spanish practice in my daily life, so I started watching more Mexican YouTube.
More
And,
Spanish YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, and there, I'm listening to someone from Spain too, just to get more of that going on. Anyway, that's another tangent for another day. The other day, I kind of was just thinking about it, like, because this guy just went to Tanzania for his video, like he did like 2 weeks in Tanzania of videos while he was there, and he went to Dubai right after that, and then came back home and started doing more stuff. And I was just thinking, like man, that's got to be expensive. Like, how much is this guy making? And I went to go check to see what his YouTube subscriber count was, and he has 34 million subscribers. And I did not realize that before I started watching it. He was just some random guy that I kind of came through a Google search to get that kind of exposure. And I didn't realize how much that was until I went to go check out the Game Theorists channel, which for me I think is one of the biggest channels on YouTube. At least, but that might be me in my bubble. To me, they're one of the biggest ones, and I feel like they do so much production to make that work. And they have like half. And I couldn't believe it. This guy, I mean, not that this Mexican blogger doesn't do a lot. I'm sure he does a lot of editing. He like puts out videos every day, so he does a lot of editing. But like all his videos are him talking to the camera and monologuing. Like, it's good,
Oh.
it's entertaining stuff, but it's not the production that like a Game Theory would do for their videos. And they have almost triple the amount of subscribers. And I'm sure that means like triple the amount of views, which probably means triple the amount of revenue. And it's just him and his girlfriend versus the whole team that makes Game Theory videos.
There's a potential theory behind that, and yes, I'm going to skip the joke just for brevity's sake. But yeah, supposedly YouTube, anything dealing with video games is treated like hot garbage.
There is that. You're right, and Matt's brought that up too. You're right.
So yeah, let's that could be a talk for later.
Yeah.
Potentially a front row perspective kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But no, let's kind of get back to the topic, which
we don't have to get Borderlands today. We'll talk Borderlands next week.
Give you more time to play more Borderlands.
Yeah.
But yeah, hardware-wise, like I've been hearing more harsher reports from the PS5.
Yeah, has there been any actual problems you've heard from the Xbox? Other than the clicking we're talking about?
There's people having trouble. I think there's been a few reports. Again, like we were talking about before, we don't know if it's just people who have a large audience. That's why it seems like a bigger deal. But people having like boot issues, one or two instances of an Xbox dying. A lot of what you're saying about the PS4, honestly, except maybe heating. I think the only one that hasn't been specifically brought up is a heating issue, other than the fake videos of the Xbox smoking.
AKA, stop vaping through your Xbox. God. But
So-
yeah, no, it overall, like, I've heard less hardware issues on the Xbox side. Not to say there wasn't, but it's like, oh, dead on arrival, and it's like that.
That could be any number of things too.
That could be any number of things. Like, it may have been mishandled during shipping. It might have just been straight up a dead console when it left the factory.
Maybe
That
someone
happened?
actually tried to smoke a bowl through an Xbox.
Somebody tried to smoke the bowl, but the problem is that they literally just broke their Xbox. But yeah, no. As of right now, the one that seems to have the harsher issues, at least based on reports, seems to be PlayStation 5. But as stated, this is like the first week, and any type of like issue is going to be reported is probably going to garner any level of attention, regardless of whether the person that reported it has a large audience or not.
Though,
People are trying to pick it up. So,
I mean, just to theory craft a little bit on this subject before we go. I,
mhm.
I feel like I almost expect that to happen with PlayStation because I don't know how you feel about this, but for me there has been like an inkling that I wonder if PlayStation's a little too confident going into this new generation. I wonder if their success in the PlayStation 4 era and even the PlayStation 3 era residuals has kind of, kind of given them some maybe not undue confidence, but a little bit of that going in. And Xbox is coming into this generation knowing how they royally fucked up the beginning of the last generation. And they know they can't go into this with any real mistakes. Like the stuff we're hearing right now is still kind of small fry. As long as it's not a red ring of death at this point, I think they're going to be okay. But they've been
Yeah.
on that road before. They know how ugly it is, and it's part of their DNA now to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Well,
Well, I think Xbox has the advantage of the Game Pass, meaning that even if you get a new console, you have that already as a part of your system.
Mhm.
Yeah, personally
Even
speaking,
if you're just playing a game that you never played before on, old Xbox One or last gen, it'll still be improved.
Yeah, that Game Pass is a lot of goodwill. Like, I mean, I was easily sold on that one. And there's people who I think 3 months ago was thinking that PlayStation had this in the bag. And they're like, no, this Game Pass is a game changer.
Yeah.
That pro consumer angle is really working for Microsoft, and they've been really good about milking that. Like, and I think PlayStation is couldn't help but kind of follow suit with that because Microsoft, ever since they started doing stuff this year about next gen titles, they've been saying that smart delivery thing where their cross generational titles are going to be automatically upgraded to the whatever the best thing is. If you bought it for Xbox One and it's a cross gen title, once you get an Xbox Series X, it's going to automatically upgrade to the best version of that. And I think PlayStation was kind of sitting on their hands about that and not really making a lot of movement in that direction. But I think this week we saw kind of an example of them kind of being kind of pushed in that direction because the Spider-Man game, the remaster that came out, that one has now been like they've gone ahead and go, oh, okay, well, we will honor a a, a special. Oh, what did I just call it on the Xbox?
Cross gen.
Yeah, they'll honor the cross gen upgrade to it. They'll do smart delivery version, their own version of smart delivery with that one. So I think there has been a little bit of that where Xbox is, by virtue of what's going on, is changing the game for the better for everybody at least. Or I think so. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I
Alright.
think we've kind of burned ourselves out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we call the episode and get to streaming? I mean, end the episode.
Nintendo released a handheld.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I don't
Nintendo
hear.
released. Yeah. Nintendo released Game and Watch Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, that. Yeah.
So I'm just putting it out there that, like, hey, Nintendo released handheld the same way that these two giants decided to fight each other.
Well, Nintendo's already sitting pretty on an entire market share that neither Xbox or Sony is really getting into, which is mobile gaming.
Yeah, because the Switch is both like console and mobile.
And
So,
you know that circuit game is really gonna bring in the big bucks. I mean,
eh.
it's fun, but probably not.
Yeah, it's just like a little kind of like, I brought it up because it's kind of jokey. Oh, hey, moment.
I mean, to kind of pivot off what you're saying, I think I was hearing the reports a couple days ago that they're still doing super well as far as sales go. Like they
Yeah,
still have. I mean, they've gone like dozens of, maybe more than a dozen consecutive months of being the number one selling console. But whatever that means, really. But if nothing else, it means that they're doing a good job and they're selling
yeah.
well. Oh, and the Animal Crossing is their second best selling game, only behind Double Dash or whatever the Wii port was for Mario Kart. So there you go. The Switch is doing fine. They're going to be okay. Switch Pro or not, but please do a Switch Pro. For the love of God, Nintendo, please do a Switch Pro. I will give you my money.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up and we can get other things started, everybody. Thanks for joining. Watch us Fridays and Saturdays. We stream on those evenings. And then look out for new episodes of this podcast, of course, and then FRP. We just released 2 episodes on game pricing and Final Fantasy this last week. What do we expect coming up soon?
Nothing this weekend, because we're actually slowly running out on like backlog. So,
Oh, okay. Then we look forward to whatever comes next then. And in that case, we'll go ahead and sign off. Goodbye, everybody.
night, everybody.
This has been a presentation of Front Row Geeks. Adios.